Abigail, we can escape to the north. There's a place we can be together. Across the border. Will you leave with me?
Easter buddy, chill. I got it on, bro. Yo, bro, I got it on, bro.
Hey, Easter buddy, yo.
I got it on, bro.
It's Easter, my nigga.
Easter, man.
Easter, buddy, get on there and see it. Yo, it's Easter, Skyler.
Get in there.
He was shaking. He was shaking. The Easter buddy was shaking. He was shaking. Bro, leave it alone, bro.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, one of America's biggest fears has been black people who are armed. There's always been laws and consequences for us having any kind of weapon. They made defending ourselves illegal, and simply defending ourselves is a crime. During the Civil War, they didn't want us joining the army on either side, the North or the South, because they didn't want us having guns. It's just the first ones who decided to arm us was the ones who won the war. And just like every other war in America, so many of us eagerly signed up to fight. And now today they try to tell us that white men fought and died to end slavery, when in reality the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. Abraham Lincoln in the Emancipation Proclamation didn't free one black person. What they don't tell you is the first black codes was passed in Mississippi before the 13th Amendment was even officially added to the Constitution. In that same year, 1865, that America quote-unquote ended slavery, there were about 7 or 8 different massacres where black communities were destroyed. The Memphis riots of 1866 was one of the most well-documented. It started because some Irish cops tried to break up a group of black people, which was illegal back then for black people to gather in groups. And even still today, they call it gangs. So one black man who had just fought with the Union Army and was a war veteran wasn't having it, and he refused to leave. So then about 50 other black men who were also war veterans got on code, got armed, and went to go protect his brother and have his back. And as the situation started escalating, mobs of white people, both men and women, started showing up. One witness said they saw mobs of policemen shooting at the black soldiers as they ran away. Then the mob started to attack every black man, woman, and child they could find. And the attack lasted for 3 days. One witness said as they burnt their neighbor's house down, they saw the young girl who lived there and she was shot. And as she laid there crying for help, the mob threw her into the fire while she was still alive and watched her burn to death, all while shooting at her mom, making her run away. Another 16-year-old black girl testified how she was attacked by 7 Irishmen, including 2 cops. After they forced their way into her home, they tried to rape her, and when she said no, they punched her in the face, then choked her. And she said she tried to get out of the window trying to get away, but they pulled her back in, knocked her down, started beating on her, choking her. And then they pulled a gun on her and said, if you don't give us what we want, we'll shoot you and then burn your house down. And as these 7 white men took turns raping this 16-year-old black girl and the other young girl in the house with her, the other ones was going through the house, destroying everything, taking everything they could find. Money, anything valuable they had. By the end of the massacre, 46 black people were killed, 75 were injured, 5 women reported and testified being raped, and those were just the ones who reported it. They robbed over 100 black people, taking all of their money and anything valuable. They burned down 91 homes, 4 churches, 12 schools. And after all of this, not one white person was ever killed or harmed by a black person. Not even one black person did something to hurt a white person. And these white mobs were made up of the policemen, the firefighters, and your average everyday white man and woman. Now, the official report to Congress back then tried to blame it all on Irishmen and give every other white group a pass. But it wasn't just the white immigrants, it was all groups of white people. But the Irish were most of the cops involved in the riot, and the main ones inciting the riot. Then the newspapers blamed the riot on black people, saying it was our fault. They said Negroes have gotten a taste of their own medicine for provoking the whites, and said this was a good lesson because now Negroes know not to arouse the fury of the white man. Meaning, if we even think these Negroes are getting out of line, we're going to put them back in their place with violence. And now, over 150 years later, too many of us act surprised when they're still doing the same thing they've always done. In North Carolina, our brother Danquirs Franklin was shot to death by Charlotte PD officer Wende Kerl. Now, let's go back and see what happened with this brother Danquirs Franklin.
I'm crossing. Get out of the way. Sir, put the gun down.
Put it down. Put it down now.
Put the gun down. He's got a gun. Drop the gun. Drop the weapon.
Ma'am, get out of the way.
Ma'am, get out of the way.
Drop the gun.
Drop the gun.
Drop it.
Drop it now.
Drop it.
Drop the weapon.
Drop it. I said
drop it.
Drop it.
Drop the weapon now.
Put it on the ground.
Put it on the ground.
Put the gun on the ground. Put it on the ground.
Get down.
Put it on the ground. Put it on the ground. Drop it.
Shots fired. I shot a fire.
Wendy, we got one shot up here. I'm going to need medic now. Wendy.
What?
Let me see your hands.
Let me see your hands.
Oh, yeah, I'm the dash. I'm the GM. I'm the GM. I just pulled it on the dash. Yes, sir.
I gotta pick up the gun.
We just went through all of the 11 minutes of the body camera video from a deadly police shooting at a Burger King last month.
CMPD released the full video within the last hour, more than a week after releasing only 2 minutes of body cam video. While we know more of what happened after shots were fired, there are still unanswered questions. Here's what we do know. Officer Wende Kerl calls medic seconds after she fired shots. Medic arriving on scene less than 4 minutes later.
What's still unclear from that video, though, did officers check on Danquirs Franklin, and did they do first aid?
Watching the video, almost immediately after Officer Wende Kerl shoots Danquirs Franklin, Officer Larry Deal calls for medic. Then we hear Kerl ask about Deal's body cam.
Do not turn off. Are you on? Okay, sorry, I've been on the whole time.
Then they radioed for more backups as Franklin moans. We will not let you hear those sounds.
He pulled the gun.
Yes, he did. I know, Wendy. Are you okay?
I'm all right. Yep, I'm all right.
There was also someone crying. We hear Kerl explain to Officer Deal why she did what she did. About 3 minutes, medic arrives. Another minute, and they start for the first time tending to Franklin. Kerl speaks again.
I don't know who's a witness.
I don't know.
We don't. All I know is I shot because he had the gun in his hand.
And again.
I shot him.
Huh?
I shot him.
All right.
He pulled the gun.
About 2 minutes later, she's placed in a squad car.
I didn't have a choice.
You're all right.
And about 7 minutes after the shooting,
Is he alive?
at the end of the video, we hear her speak of the shooting one last time.
He had a gun. He wouldn't drop it.
And Tanya, the question now, did these officers follow protocol in the seconds after those deadly shots were fired?
So the chief made it very clear that all officers are expected to render aid. They all have at least basic first aid training and CPR training. The investigation now continues into when exactly any of that training was kicked in and when anybody actually attempted to render any aid. Questions now swirling about how long that took. When we looked at the video, you can see that once Officer Wende Kerl says she's removing the gun from underneath Franklin, you don't see any other officers even bend in his direction until almost 2 full minutes later. Now, it's not clear in the video if that officer even attempts to render aid when he does bend in that direction, or if he's actually just attempting to talk to the person who's sitting in the passenger seat of the car there. What is clear, though, is that medic arrives 4 minutes after Franklin was shot. Kerl also can be heard admitting in the video that she didn't check on him, saying, quote, "I haven't touched him yet." She went on to say that she shot him, so she didn't. She had to get the gun from underneath him first. The chief now saying that he is going to be reforming their first aid policies, looking into the possibility of having medic and fire on standby nearby so that if the worst case happens, they're able to respond to the scene even faster. Listen to what else the chief said.
But again, our job is to get better. What cannot be more disheartening is watching a video, and we see a lot of them, and it appears that but for training, we could have rendered more aid. I can tell you the specific video of Mr. Franklin is a good example.
Now, this brother, Danquirs Franklin, was going through some issues with his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend and their new boyfriend. And he went up to Burger King and they got into a fight. Now, the brother had a gun on him, and some people said he was waving it, some people said he wasn't. So when the police showed up, he was outside. You could see he was kneeling by a car talking to somebody. Then Officer Wende Kerl started yelling, "Drop the gun, drop the gun." And he didn't move for a second. He didn't do anything. And she kept yelling, "Drop the gun, drop the gun." So as soon as this brother goes to put the gun down like she's been telling him, holding it by the barrel away from the cops, this white woman, Wende Kerl, opened fire, claiming she felt in danger. You can even hear this brother trying to say, "You told me to drop the gun," which would be his last words. Then it turns out the person sitting in the car was the manager at Burger King, who was praying with this brother. A manager at Burger King did a better job at de-escalating the situation than the cops could. He had it under control until the cops showed up. They shot this brother Danquirs Franklin in mid-prayer while he was complying with their orders. Then as this brother lay dying, they don't even try to help him. And despite how many policies they broke, they got on call right away, telling her it was okay, comforting her, and they always put their cape on for each other right away and do whatever they can to protect them.
Backlash after the release of the entire body cam video and the shooting death of Danquirs Franklin. Tonight, community leaders gathering outside CMPD headquarters demanding change from law enforcement.
Every officer involved with this shooting who did not attempt to save this man's life needs to be disciplined.
All 11 minutes of footage was released this afternoon.
And for the past few hours, we've been going through it frame by frame. Officer Wende Kerl calls medics seconds after she fired shots. Medic arriving on scene less than 4 minutes later. What's still unclear from the video, did officers check on Danquirs Franklin, and did they do first aid? NBC Charlotte's Kendall Morris joins us live to walk us through what happened. Kendall?
Yeah, this video gives us a better perspective of Officer Kerl's response directly following the shooting, even hearing her several times justify why she shot Franklin. Now, you're about to see a timer in the upper left-hand corner of your screen giving you the minute-by-minute and second-by-second breakdown of before, during, and after this shooting. Body camera rolling. 11 minutes worth of video starts with Officer Wende Kerl in a patrol car.
I just went out to the car.
At a little more than a minute in, Officer Kerl is seen arriving at the Burger King, beginning a series of verbal commands telling Danquirs Franklin several times to drop the gun. We are pausing the video due to its graphic content.
Shots fired, I shot a fire.
Another officer is heard calling medic 13 seconds after the gun went off. It is unclear how much, if any, aid is given to Franklin in the minutes following the shooting.
Pulled the gun.
Yes, he did. I know, Wendy. Are you okay?
2 minutes and 15 seconds after the shooting, someone is seen checking on Franklin. Officer Kerl is heard multiple times explaining why she fired the gun.
All I know is I shot because he had the gun in his hand. This is the gun. I had to take it from underneath him. I haven't touched him yet. I shot him, so I had to get the gun from underneath him first. I wanted to stand with the gun.
4 minutes after shots were fired, the video shows what appears to be medic arriving on scene.
I shot him.
Huh?
I shot him.
All right.
He pulled the gun. He wouldn't drop it.
An officer tells Kerl to take a seat in a patrol car, heard minutes later discussing what happened.
I had to. He wouldn't drop the gun, and he brought it out of his jacket.
Our kids are home, right? You must see them this evening, right?
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Fast forward, Kerl is heard asking about Franklin.
Is he alive? Hey, Hawkins, is he alive? Is he alive?
Before the video ends, Kerl says one more time what she saw in that parking lot.
He had a gun, he wouldn't drop it. He wouldn't drop it. And then he reached in his thing, pulled the gun out. We didn't know, we thought it was in his hand. And I shot him.
Now, CMPD turned over all evidence related to this shooting to the DA's office earlier today. Reporting live from CMPD headquarters, Kendall Morris, NBC Charlotte.
And we are hearing from the attorney of Officer Wende Kerl about that body cam video. In his statement, he said Officer Kerl is not going to comment while the investigation is ongoing. However, the statement went on to say the whole story cannot be told in either a 2-minute and 20-second video or the full 11-minute video. He concluded his statement saying they look forward to the end of the investigation and the ultimate decision by the district attorney's office.
Now, this white woman, Wende Kerl, said she had no other choice but to open fire as soon as she saw the gun that she told him to drop. The body camera footage was eventually released after they were forced, despite the DA fighting to stop it from getting released. And at first, they only released a 2-minute clip of the full video. But after enough backlash, they finally released the whole thing. And it showed, against policy, they didn't even try to help this brother. He didn't get any medical attention until the paramedics showed up. Even the police chief said it's policy for cops to give aid right away. And he called it one of the most troubling videos he's seen. And he said all the criticism is justified. But he made sure to walk on eggshells to not criminalize this white woman. And he wouldn't say anything about any charges.
Reaction to that deadly police shooting at a Charlotte Burger King. Police Chief Putney admitting that one of the officers' body cams was not on.
Danquirs Franklin shot and killed by police in March. Chief Putney saying the scrutiny and criticism of his department is justified. And while the chief wouldn't get into specifics over whether Officer Wende Kerl was legally justified, he admitted the video was one of the most troubling he's seen. NBC Charlotte went to court to get the police body cam out of transparency, but only one of the body cameras was a working camera, and that's the center of CMPD's internal investigation. The DA will get details of the investigation as early as tomorrow, and we have live team coverage at 5.
Brandon Goldner is in Charlotte with more on what the chief had to say.
Chief Putney said he couldn't get into the specifics of the investigation, but he did give his general thoughts on the body camera video.
This is one of the most troubling videos I've seen. It is. It's one of the most troubling videos I've seen.
Chief Putney's comments came during the first community meeting he's attended after his department released this 93-second clip. It shows the moments when Officer Wende Kerl shot and killed 27-year-old Danquirs Franklin last month.
Sir, put the gun down!
You do get judged when there's an officer-involved shooting, and the criticism and scrutiny is absolutely justified.
Many of the comments at this meeting focused not just on the body camera video, but the recent spate in murders in the city. Though one question in particular drew a strong reaction from the crowd. A man asked why police released only one body camera video when it showed another officer on scene.
Right now, that is the internal investigation, because if you don't have your body-worn camera on, that's a violation of policy and a serious violation. What I can tell you is one body cam was working. I can't talk about the rest because that's going to be investigated as well.
Chief Putney says investigators will turn over their findings to the DA's office by late next week. He says prosecutors will take about 6 to 8 weeks to determine whether this shooting was justified. And Chief Putney will be meeting again with the community tonight and tomorrow night.
Now, of course, even though he finds it troubling, he still can't really talk about the case. But that's what happens when you let somebody else determine whether you get justice or not. They built this system by staying on code, and we still act surprised by the results we get. But they understand the power that you have when you are on code. That's why they go out of the way to keep us off code. Like the brother in the bunny costume who helped the black woman, as he should. That brother stayed on code. But instead of talking about that white thug who spit and attacked that black woman, they're bringing up how this brother in the bunny costume got a criminal record because they criminalize us being on code. And until we put our tribalism to the side and do what we got to do and stay on code, then we're going to continue to get the results that we get, because at the end of the day, we are all we got.
Don't you leave! I will charge you with evading. Y'all stay here. 85. Can I get additional units here to the verge? I got a group of subjects trying to leave.
Y'all look at him. He is on there for no reason. Like, we don't know what to do. Look.
Oh my God! What the fuck? Oh my gosh! Call somebody right now! Let go of her!
Yes, I'm out at Verge. It's called Bro. He's over here trying to talk to my friend. Breathe. Who are you? Who are you? I have my own God.
Wow, let go of her! Call the police!
Call the police! Call somebody! I can't! I don't give a fuck! Get off of her right now! Get off of her! Bro!
Hold her. You hold her.
Hold her!
Let's go. Let's go. You hold her.
We got to record. We got to record. Hey, you start hitting it like that. We got to record. We got to record. We got that shit. We got that shit, bro. We got that shit. We got that shit. We got this shit. We looking at it, bro. We got it, bro. Don't touch my phone, bro. Don't touch my phone, bro. Don't touch my phone, man. We right here, man. We right here, man. Hey, yo, we got it, bro. We got it. We right here. We good. We good. Don't do nothing. We got it. We got it.
We right here.
We got it, man.
We right here.
Hey, what's the name? Hey, don't touch my phone. Don't touch my phone.
We right here.
Don't stop touching me, man. Stop touching me.
Get back.
Hey, bro. Hey, don't put your fucking hands on me, man. Don't put your fucking hands on me. Don't use your fucking hands on me, bro. Hey, come here, hey, bro.
Bro, just chill, bro. Reggie, hey, don't resist. Reggie, don't resist.
Dude, I'm trying to right now.
Oh, hey, bro, what the fuck?
Bro, get the fuck off me. No, don't you fucking touch me. I'm getting no fuck. Get out of my face right now. Bro, don't fucking touch him.
Bro, don't touch him like that, bro. Come on. Reggie.
I'm getting no fuck.
Take your hands off. You gotta take your hands off me. You gotta take your hands off me. Take your hands off me. Take your body off me. I did not touch anybody. I didn't violate anybody. Why are your hands on me? We're gonna walk out. Take your hands off of me. Take your hands off of me. Why are you touching me? Take your hands off of me. Let's walk outside. Let me show you my ID. You want to see my ID? I'm a Columbia University student. You see this? That's me. This is the third time Body Public Safety has chased me down. Walk outside. And you put your hands on me. I didn't touch any of you. Not to be ashamed of yourself. Walk outside. I'm not walking outside. I'm a Columbia University student. You saw my ID. Give me my ID back. I'm going to hold on to your ID. No, I need my ID. I'm going to hold on to your ID. Give me my ID back, sir. Excuse me. Hold on. Excuse me. This is my ID. I'm here back. Walk outside. No, we're not talking outside. Come on. No, because you don't want to make a scene. You're talking right here. You want to talk to me? Talk to me right here. I'm a Columbia University student. I have a right to be in this building.
Okay, we're going to find out if you're a student.
You saw my ID. What else do you need to see?
Well, let's see if you're an active student.
You see my ID right now.
Right.
Scan your thing. I'm a student here. This is ridiculous. You put your hands on me. I didn't touch anybody. Y'all saw what happened.
No, don't be sorry.
Calling a case of police brutality. Video showing police using mace on at least one of two teenagers. Local 10 News reporter Kristen De La Rosa live now with a controversial video for us tonight. Christian.
Calvin, there are still blood stains on the street here. That's how violent things got as dozens of young people were watching and recording. A Broward County deputy pepper sprays a teen. Another deputy seen swinging a punch, banging the teen's head on the street. Blood stains can be seen on the ground. Multiple witnesses recording on their cell phones.
There's going to be another fight here.
Students from nearby J.P. Taravella High School tell us they showed up here outside the McDonald's on Pine Island and Southgate Road to see a fight. BSO is telling Local 10 News their deputies were responding to that fight, arresting two teenagers, one for battery on a law enforcement officer and another for resisting. This man, who also witnessed what happened, says deputies went too far.
Way too far.
So we're reaching out to BSO as well. We want to know more about what exactly went down before the cameras started rolling. We're also asking them if what we see in the video, especially that one part where the deputy is over the teen, pressing him against the street, appearing to swing a punch and banging his head against the ground, if they believe those actions were justified. We are standing by for their answer.
It's a man giving out free haircuts to the homeless, and they out here harassing them.
That's why it's different. I mean, Dr. Joe over the head, he'd be cool. So listen to what he just said. He got a call from the captain. He called somebody else to get the information for the captain to give to me. Why he ain't call the captain back? If the captain called him, I'm trying to tell you. Listen, got to check it. Write it down.
Social media up in arms tonight over this video right here. It shows a Philly barber who is nationally known for giving free haircuts to the homeless being confronted by a Philly police officer and told to pack things up. Eyewitness News reporter Matt Petro is live in Center City. Matt, it appears people online are making judgment calls, but this all may be much ado about nothing. Good evening.
Hey, Joe, good evening to you. That's right. You know, Brennan Jones has been cutting hair for homeless here on 8th and Market Streets for years. He was doing just that the other day at this corner when he tells us a police officer approached him, told him he has to leave. Well, the whole incident was caught on camera, but an official tells us that incident may not be as hairy as it seems.
Cell phone video shows Brennan Jones being approached by a Philadelphia police officer telling him to clean up and leave.
This basically came over and said, listen, I got a call from my sergeant. You have to shut down immediately. No explanation.
Tonight, Jones explains the incident with the officer is much different than how the city recognized him in 2017. That's when Eyewitness News first told you his story, and not long before he became honored by everyone from Philly's mayor to the 76ers, all for his Haircut for Homeless program.
I come here every other week, and I come here, and I've been doing it for the last 3 years.
Well, they say no good deed goes unpunished, and Jones says he knows the feeling all too well after the incident with the officer. But Jones told the officer if he has to pack up, he'll call the mayor. So the officer then made a call and told Jones to just clean up after he's done.
If hair was to blow, it's not going to go far.
And we did email a Philly police spokesperson for comment, but we haven't heard back. It is Sunday night after all. We are expecting to hear from them tomorrow, but a source tells us that the situation ended amicably.
Act of kindness that has a Metro father still smiling tonight.
A group of local nurses paid the bond to get him out of jail after he was arrested while rushing his daughter to the hospital. Fox News' Molly Rose joins us from Centerville with this exclusive report. Molly.
Well, Darius Hinkle does admit he doesn't have a valid license, and he tells us he was flying down the street. But he says he did it because his one-year-old daughter was choking on a penny. He tells us by the time he arrived here to the hospital, he had more than a handful of police officers behind him with their sirens on. Tonight, one-year-old Damani is all smiles. But earlier today, her parents say she was having the scariest moment of her life when she was choking on a penny.
The first thing in my mind was get her to the hospital.
And that's what Darius Hinkle did. He says officers later told him he was going over 100 miles per hour.
That's my daughter. I wouldn't want nothing to happen to her.
The dad says there were lights and sirens behind him for miles until he finally arrived at the hospital with his daughter and her mother.
They told us to get out, put our hands up, and I got out, I put my hands up, and I yelled, and I told the police, my baby is choking. And I told them multiple times that she was choking. They was just worried about the fact that we were speeding.
Hinkle says multiple police agencies were on scene and says he was arrested and taken to jail. Dantia Pittman says she had just arrived to the jail to try to bond him out when
somebody was up there and they said, I'm here to bond out Darius Hinkle. And I was looking like I didn't know who it was. And when I looked out the door to see who it was, she spoke and she said, I'm the nurse from Touche Hospital.
The couple says they are so grateful to these nurses for their kindness.
I can't thank them enough.
And for saving their daughter.
I couldn't thank them enough. Like, they was there for us ever since we had got there. Like, they was helpful.
Okay, that's no different.
Sir.
Yes.
They ask you to leave the bus?
You don't have no right to ask me to leave the bus.
All right, do you have a bus pass?
Yes, I do.
Let me see it. Got anything on you? Weapons, anything like that? No, you don't. I asked the questions. Now, listen to me. He's going to tell you to get off the bus. You don't get off the bus, I'm going to take you off the bus.
I'm with my wife. He cannot tell me what stop to get off.
Yes, he can.
No, he cannot.
Let me see your bus pass.
You can legally do anything you want to do.
Let me see your bus pass.
But I would not get off this bus until my stop is right. Keep that camera right where it is. Your name and badge number, sir.
Royal 6611, and you are being audio and visually recorded as well.
Osborne 13148. You're being audio and video recorded. Right. So what's going on? He didn't pay, or what's happening?
I don't know if he paid or not. He never showed me the pass. I asked him for a pass, and he tried to tell me, you know,
this is the pass? Is this the pass?
Don't tell me shit.
Why didn't you show him the pass when he asked to see a pass?
Listen, you don't know what happened, okay? I got on the bus before he...
You raise your voice to me, you're going to have a problem.
I got freedom of speech, okay?
Slow it.
You better stop...
Listen to me, I'm asking you a question.
I don't answer questions.
No, I'm asking you questions. If he has to see a bus pass, why didn't you show it to him?
Like I just told you again.
Why didn't you?
I got on the bus prior to him getting on the bus. I'd already paid my fare. I don't have to answer to him. And I get off on any stop I please to get off on.
This bus opens doors, all three doors. Nobody checks passes. So
do you know?
That's our job to get on and physically check passes.
You're not going to harass me on the bus.
Okay, so do you hear what he said?
I don't care what he said.
Okay, so
may I have my legal pass back,
this
sir?
is his job. Okay? You don't know who or when they came.
You see what this said?
That's her pass.
I'm her attendant, okay?
That's her pass.
It's my pass. I'm in possession of this, okay?
You want to tell me?
No, I've told you.
You got an ID on you?
I don't need an ID.
Yeah, you do.
I'm accused of crime.
Let me see your ID.
I asked you a question.
Right now, we are investigating. So
am I being detained?
Right now, you are. If you're going.
What crime have I committed?
So let me see this.
What crime have I committed or about to commit?
Because per security, you didn't show them a bus pass.
That's not a crime.
Okay, listen to me. It is. If you're
That's not a
you
crime.
can't be on the bus without a bus pass.
What is it? A felony or a misdemeanor?
That's a misdemeanor.
Okay, then you arrest me for not having a bus pass.
Anybody has a pass?
That's what you do.
Okay,
you
so
arrest
can we
me
go
if
if he's got a bus pass?
Go ahead.
Okay. Listen, next time
I'm
they
not
ask for
answering
a
no
bus
question.
pass,
I'm not answering any questions.
you give it to
You
them.
dismiss.
That's it.
You dismiss. I got no more to say to you.
Next time they
I
get
got
one?
no more to say to you.
Okay, good.
You dismiss.
Good.
Hey.
You just laugh,
We are
goddamn, ain't nothing
dismissed.
funny. You dismiss. I told you I wasn't getting off this bus.
Have a good day, sir.
You too, sir.
No, I was laughing at the thing I seen.
Now you can proceed on.
You got.
Matter of fact, you know what? Hey, pull it down. I'm getting off. Pull it down. I'm getting off right now. Hey, done? Yeah, I told you. Can we get on? Yeah, you get on. I get off. Pull it down. Oh, okay. I told you I wasn't getting off. Police don't move nothing. Now I'm gonna get off because I want to get off. Open the thing.
I ain't moving. Don't tell me move because he's fucking with this man for no reason. He said his name Deshaun. That man's name is not Deshaun. And he asking that man do what he want. Oh. Oh! Yeah! 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 Yeah!
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, if we spend half of the energy that we use trying to be accepted by a system designed to hurt us into building our own system designed to protect us, then we would be in a lot better situation. We run to go put our cape on to fight in every single war for America, fighting and defending the freedom of America. Then when it's time to fight for ours, far too many of us get scared and want to leave it up to everything and everybody else but ourselves. Some of us think that if we join the system, we'll be exempt. They will somehow see you different from the rest of us. No matter what you believe, they see us all as the same. And then they brainwash us to see each other through the eyes of this system and judge each other with a white supremacist standard. And some even go out and enforce white supremacy on others. In Connecticut, a 19-year-old unarmed black woman, Stephanie Washington, was shot in the face and the back by Hamden police while she was just sitting in the car with her boyfriend. So let's go back and see how this young woman, Stephanie Washington, ended up getting shot in the face and the back.
Shots fired! 20 shots fired, Argyle Street, with the car.
Roger, shots fired. 20, what's your location?
Argyle Street.
Argyle Street in Dixwell, 093.
Turning now to developing news in New Haven. Body cams were improperly used and in one case not used at all. That's the conclusion from state police today as the investigation into the police shooting at an unarmed couple in New Haven continues. Now the calls for the officers involved to be fired are growing louder. Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Matthew Campbell is live at Hamden Police Headquarters with a closer look at that video. And Matthew, what can you tell us tonight?
Well, Aaron, it shows several lapses in judgment by these officers. The state says the Hamden officer did not have his body camera on until after the initial shots were fired. The Yale officer did not turn his body camera on at all. Now, you may be wondering about dash cam footage. That technology does not exist here in Hamden Cruisers. Yale has it, but again, the state says the officer simply did not turn it on. This is body cam video released by state police today showing Hamden officer Devin Eaton fire several shots toward Paul Witherspoon's red Honda Civic as the door opens. The camera was turned on after Eaton fired the initial shots, but there's a recall function on it which allowed the footage to be played back. But there's no audio for this portion.
In a perfect world, without all those stressors, yes, you should have turned it on much sooner.
Yesterday, Eyewitness News was the first to show you this clearer version of surveillance, which some say shows Witherspoon exiting the car with his hands up.
There are indications that he was told to open the door, yes. Or come out with his hands up.
James Ravella is the commissioner of the Department of Emergency Services, and he says there's no video available from Yale officer Terrance Pollock because he failed to turn on both his body camera and dash camera. This shooting, which did injure Witherspoon's girlfriend, stems from an investigation into a reported armed robbery that happened here at the Go On gas station in Hamden. A clerk called police saying a man matching the description of Witherspoon robbed a delivery person at gunpoint.
Attention all units. Hamden just put out that there was a street robbery involving a firearm, a gun.
That led to Eaton crossing city lines into New Haven looking for the suspect. No gun was found in the car and Witherspoon was not charged. We went back to the gas station today and was told all surveillance had been turned over to police and the clerk who dialed 911 no longer works there.
Police officers are not supposed to act as judge, jury, and executioner on our street.
Since the shooting, Carrie Ellington has organized marches at Hamden Police Headquarters and Yale and says today's development makes her more motivated to see swift discipline for the officers involved.
These officers should be suspended without pay right now, and they should be terminated as soon as possible.
We took those demands to Hamden Mayor Kurt Lang.
The officer will be held accountable for his actions, and the actions weren't acceptable.
Now, the state says releasing the body camera footage while the investigation is still going on is very rare, but they did that because they want to be transparent. Now, the state's attorney's office is handling this investigation, and these things take months, sometimes up to a year to be completed, but we learned tonight that's also being fast-tracked. This investigation could be completed in 2, possibly 3 months.
Now, the police said they got a call after a newspaper delivery driver got robbed at a gas station, and Stephanie Washington's boyfriend, Paul Witherspoon, fit the description, and his car fit the description. So then Officer Devin Eaton, who is a black cop, responded to the call, then crossed city lines out of his jurisdiction, where he saw this black couple sitting in a red car in a whole different area from where the robbery happened. And as he stopped him, according to the police, the cop Devin Eaton told his brother to get out of the car, but said he refused. Instead, he said his brother got out of the car in an abrupt manner and turned towards the cops. He's saying he told him to get out of the car and he refused. He just got out of the car too fast. And the video shows him getting out of the car with his hands up like he was told. Even city officials said he told him to get out of the car with his hands up, which he did. And this cop Devin Eaton immediately jumped out of his car, opening fire, shooting his gun while he was running away. Then another black cop, Terrance Pollock, with the Yale police, who didn't even turn his camera on at all, jumped out of his car while it was still moving and started to open fire. He actually hit his fellow officer he was there to back up. And it turns out this black couple didn't have a gun in the car at all. These cops were just shooting at each other. They fired all them shots but didn't hit this brother one time who was their target. But they did hit his girlfriend Stephanie Washington in the head and the back. Even if this brother Paul Witherspoon would have been the right person, which he wasn't, this sister Stephanie Washington still would have been an innocent passenger who had nothing to do with the robbery. And this brother said she was just sitting there screaming, "They shot me, they shot me." And then after these cops shot at each other and hit this young woman, Stephanie Washington, then they arrested this brother Paul Witherspoon. Now, the police have been doing a little bit of caping, but with these black cops, that Blue Lives Matter rhetoric isn't quite the same.
Imagine all those bullets going through that car and you doing nothing wrong. You're putting your hands out. You see it in the video. He has his hands out.
2 officers are on leave after a police shooting in New Haven, but family and activists say that is not good enough. Channel 3 is learning that Stephanie Washington, the woman in the car, is out of the hospital. Meanwhile, Paul Witherspoon walked away unharmed. Channel 3's Shantae Passmore is live with what watchdog groups are saying they want done. Shantae?
Denise, in recent days, activists have been calling for more transparency and better training. And right now, they're looking for action, and that's to fire the officers. Paul Witherspoon's mom, Keisha Green, holds her son tighter.
Like, people thought he was dead. Like, they was putting rest in peace Shady.
He was a driver sitting in a car when state police say Hamden officer Devin Eaton and Yale officer Terrance Pollock fired their guns. Stephanie Washington also sat in a car struck by bullets. As a mother cares for her son, the Greater New Haven NAACP chapter keeps a closer eye on the police shooting.
This was a big fail, and so this is going to be used as an example of what not to do.
Chapter President Dory Dumas told Channel 3 the hospital released Stephanie Washington today. It's this body cam video released by state police that's left the NAACP stunned.
The conduct is just disgusting. The way those police officers handled the whole situation, everything about it is wrong.
It shows Hamden officer Devin Eaton fired several shots. He turned his camera on after he started shooting. State police say there's no recording from Yale officer Terrance Pollock because he didn't turn on his body nor dash cam. Meanwhile, the Commissioner of Department of Emergency Services say there appears to be some indication Witherspoon was told to open the door and come out with his hands up.
Hands up, don't shoot.
Clergy from New Haven laid out 10 reasons to fire Eaton and Pollock immediately. It said protocol was never followed.
And to say that you are going to wait until the investigation is over, we're sending a message today. You will not wait. We will not wait. The urgency is now.
And not only is this NAACP chapter worried about the New Haven shooting, but also the one we recently saw in Wethersfield. I've learned the chapters in Hartford and New Haven are working together to talk with state officials about these shootings.
Now, these cops have been put on leave, but the Blue Lives Matter crowd isn't making as much noise as they usually make. The police themselves say they rarely release body camera footage, especially when they're still investigating. We usually always hear, we gotta wait for the facts. But in this case, they have no problem releasing it. They usually drag out the investigation until the anger calms down and then send it to a secret grand jury. But with these cops, they're going to speed up the investigation, put it on a fast track. And what usually takes a year, they're going to do in a month or two. And even the mayor has no problem in this case coming out saying this is unacceptable and these cops will be held accountable. And they do need to be held accountable. But they all need to be held accountable, not just certain ones. Too many think that having on a uniform or serving the very people who have been brutalizing you for hundreds of years will make you exempt and give you a pass from being brutalized. Too many people think it makes them different. But time and time again, you're always the first person they throw under the bus. Just because it's a black face doing it doesn't mean it's not racially profiling. A black person seeing another black person through the eyes of white supremacy is still white supremacy. Because somehow black cops never seem to make this mistake when it comes to white kids. When a white father put his own son in danger getting into a police chase, it was the black cop that got 40 years because the white kid ended up dead. There is a reason why black cops don't make the same mistake when it comes to other groups, because other groups will make that black cop pay. And sooner or later, you will get your wake-up call. Just like what happened to the black woman, Sargent Kia Waters.
Okay, so if you notice, in this side of the screen, that's my white BMW, and that's her in her gray Nissan Altima. The same woman whose paint for her car is on the bumper of my car. So you're going to see me pull up here, and I'm about to open my door and get out and go in the gas station where there's witnesses. Before I even have time to do anything, you see this woman run around to my car, go inside, start attacking me, literally. And then you see me run away from her multiple times and she's still coming after me as I'm telling her to back up. Remind you, the whole time I'm on the phone with law enforcement, with the 911 operator.
Kentucky's self-defense law. A lot of you have been asking,
How does that work after our story last night involving a case of road rage in Elizabethtown that was caught on video? Wave 3 News reporter Connie Leonard took a look at the castle doctrine. She joins us now live with more. Now, this law allows deadly force if someone comes into your home or your car while you're in it.
Yeah, Shannon, if you fear serious bodily harm from that person, the law is designed to protect you and anyone else who defends themselves. Attorney Tom Clay, who's not involved in the case, saw the surveillance video and says he believes it speaks for itself.
The video certainly should have been taken into consideration in any charging decision.
Louisville attorney Tom Clay says when he saw this gas station surveillance video, he was pretty certain he was witnessing the castle doctrine. Clay says it also appears police got it wrong when they charged 33-year-old Fort Knox Sergeant Kia Waters with felony assault.
This video is very disturbing as far as showing a person who has been designated as a victim who actually appears to be the aggressor.
Waters told us a 58-year-old woman got behind her in the fast lane on Patriot Parkway in February, wanting her to move over. Waters says the woman bumped her car, so she called 911 and pulled into a gas station. The woman pulled in behind her.
She ran over to my vehicle, pretty much slammed the door on me, and I told her, I was like, you know I'm on the phone with the 911 operator, they can hear you.
Waters claims the woman punched her face, so she grabbed a knife in her car and stabbed the woman's leg. The fight spilled outside. Waters said when Elizabethtown police arrived, they tended to the other woman and took her downtown. The castle doctrine got a lot of publicity in Louisville years ago when a judge ruled former Louisville baseball player Isaiah Howes was acting in self-defense when he shot and killed Daniel Covington after he said Covington attacked him in his car. Clay says in this case, there's video evidence.
And this vehicle, which is the subject of this road rage incident, was occupied by the sergeant at the time this other individual came around and basically initiated physical contact with her.
Now, Clay says Waters is entitled to immunity under the law. The prosecutor tells me tonight the grand jury will be given all the facts to make an informed decision.
Now, this black woman, Kia Waters, is a sergeant in the military, and we know how much America respects its veterans. And she ended up getting into a road rage incident with a random white woman. She even hit Kia Waters' car, so she pulled into the gas station to call the cops. This white woman was calling her all kinds of racist names and then followed her into the gas station. And then this white woman got out of her car, opened Kia Waters' door, got in her car, and started attacking her. So Kia Waters defending herself as she should. When they attack one of us, they need to know that they're not going to leave there unharmed. They need to know it's going to be consequences when you try to hurt one of us. So after this white woman started punching her, Kia Waters took her military knife and stabbed her in the leg. When the police got there, they didn't ask any questions. They just arrested this black woman, Kia Waters. They didn't even ask her side of the story and started tending to the white woman. This woman, Kia Waters, was on the phone with 911 while she was being attacked. And she was in uniform, and they still arrested her and made this random white woman who started the whole thing the victim. And now this black woman, Kia Waters, got to fight the charges, and she might lose her job and other things. Now, Kentucky has a law called the Castle Doctrine, which is something like the Stand Your Ground laws. A white boy who was a baseball player, Isaiah Howes, shot and killed her brother Daniel Covington in another road rage incident. This white boy was not arrested, he was not charged, it was never sent to a grand jury. He used the Castle Doctrine and said it was self-defense. And with no evidence whatsoever, they took his word for it. But with this woman, Kia Waters, she has video evidence, she was on the phone with 911, and she still got charged. That's because these laws was never meant to help us, only hurt us. Most of the laws America has ever passed is only meant to justify us being killed. Now, this sister, Kia Waters, suffered from severe Stockholm Syndrome. She was one of these Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter people. She talked about what about black on black crime, compare Black Lives Matter to the KKK. She even said she's tired of seeing her brothers and sisters in blue being murdered over stupidity. But now she see how her brothers and sisters in blue feel about her. And no matter what you try to do, you can't escape being black. Sooner or later, you're gonna get your nigga wake-up call. And some feel like we shouldn't cape for people with that mindset. But at the end of the day, she still had this experience because she was black. And it could happen to any one of us next time. If you destroy the system, you destroy that mentality. And if we keep letting outsiders punish our own, we're going to continue to have the same results. If somebody like Jane Elliott or somebody white people would consider a turncoat were to ever be killed or hurt by a black person, the dominant society is not going to say, well, that's what she get. I'm not going to do anything about it. No, they're going to punish whoever did it. They may try to make her an example or a lesson and say, this is what happened when you have this mindset. But they're going to make sure that they punish that person because they know they could be next. It's a slippery slope. And until we start punishing outsiders as well as our own, we're going to continue to be subject to somebody else's rules, laws, and punishments. At the end of the day, we are all we got. And when we understand that, then we'll really be able to use our power.
Yeah, I'm not lying, right? I'm not lying. But she's, look. Am I lying? Look, she has no clothes on. Yes, get her dressed right now. Why would you come outside with this little girl and she don't got no clothes on? She did not even have that on. She had a diaper on. It's too cold for that. But they're clothed. This woman is talking about this little girl is crying because I'm yelling. No, she's cold. Why'd you start yelling? Because she didn't have no goddamn clothes on. This woman brought her down the block with a diaper on. That's real, bro. We need more people like you. Come on, what the fuck is y'all talking about? Yes, I am cursing, I am loud. Because you talking about that little girl is crying because I'm yelling. All right, and your children are dressed, though. I'm scared because that little girl ain't had no clothes on.
Could you please stop?
No, I will not. I will not. I will not. I will not. Yep, I don't care. My name is Daryl Palmer, 1207 Christian Street. That little girl was outside with a diaper on. And that lady just sat down and started putting clothes on. And you talking about me? You got some goddamn nerve. This is gentrification, people. This is gentrification. Look at my fucking eyes. Yes, I'm yelling in front of these little white children and this little girl who was outside in 50-degree weather with just a diaper on. That's real, bro. And if y'all see something, say something. This man did nothing wrong. I ain't do nothing wrong. This little girl just got clothes put on just now. Was outside with just a diaper on. This lady brought her outside with just a diaper on. That's bullshit. Ain't no thank you nothing. This woman right here brought this little girl down the block with just a diaper on. No, okay, yeah, you too. You're contributing to that. Fuck you talking about. Bro. You right. Let it go. Come on. You right. You absolutely right. I got a fucking child. All right, it's cool, bro. How dare you say that? All right, come on. She's yelling because she's crying because I'm yelling. No, she's crying because she's fucking cold. Okay, come on. We're going.
Not all white men make the same as every white man in a job. It's diversified across the board. It's just not a given that anybody is going to be making the same. It doesn't matter if you're a white man or a purple man, and you all know that numbers can say whatever you want them to say. I know it's not going to come to any surprise that I'm going to be voting no on this resolution, and that's because I feel so much anger in this resolution, but I'm not sure where it's directed. And that's what I'm having a problem with. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't feel cheated. I feel blessed. But here we get up and rant and rave over something that I'm not sure I agree with all the numbers. And I know that in my family, the Mexicans, the Native Americans, the Chinese, the Muslim, the Jews, they're all making what they can, and we've never talked about somebody being paid more than another for doing a job. It's never entered in. Man, woman, we all work hard and we all feel blessed. And I just can't take part in something that is so focused against a white man. Because frankly, I feel white men have done a lot for this country and for this legislature, as all men have. And I want to thank them.
Also, when you look at life expectancy, there are certain
there are problems in the black race. Sickle cell anemia is something that comes up. Diabetes is something that's prevalent in the genetic makeup, and you just can't help it. Although I gotta say, I've never had better barbecue and better chicken and ate better in my life than when you go down south and I love it, and everybody loves it. The Mexican diet in Mexico with all of the fresh vegetables, and you go down there and they're much thinner than they are up here. They change their diet.
I believe Representative Fields, you had your hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't have a question for you, but I do have a comment. And the title of this committee is Economic Opportunity and Poverty Reduction. And one of the things that I will not tolerate is racist and insensitive remarks about African Americans, the color of their skin. What you mentioned that we eat, I was highly offended by your remarks. And I will not engage in a dialogue where I'm in the company where you are using these stereotype references about African Americans and chicken and food and all those kinds of things. I will just not tolerate that. This is not what this committee is all about. And so I would ask that you suspend your perceptions and your judgment about African Americans, about poverty, and what we're trying to do is to come up with meaningful solutions. And it's not about chicken. This is not about eating chicken.
A Broomfield fifth grader got kicked out of the Cub Scouts for asking a local politician a few tough questions.
Cub Scout mom Lori Mayfield captured the discussion between Senator Vicky Marble and this Cub Scout group last week. Her son, Ames, asks the senator about controversial remarks she made in 2013 regarding blacks, fried chicken, and poverty.
Then why do you specifically mark black people? I was astonished that you blame black people for poor health and poverty because of all the chicken and barbecue they eat.
I didn't. That was made up by the media. So you want to believe it? You believe it. But that's not how it went down. I didn't do that. That was false. Get both sides of the story.
The senator's recollection apparently rusty. We asked the senator about the racially charged comments at the time.
Do you think you were reinforcing stereotypes? That's the question.
No, I don't think so.
The senator attempted to elaborate on her comments at the Scout meeting last week.
Because I have blacks in my family. I have blacks and Mexican, and we talk about our genetics.
A veteran officer told a police recruit to shoot black people, then tried to keep it quiet.
WDRB's Valerie Chin uncovers exactly what the former Prospect Assistant Police Chief said and how his words came back to harm him.
This is still a developing story. WDRB just obtained pages of disturbing racist and sexually explicit Facebook messages between Todd Shaw and the recruit. They all came in light while prosecutors were investigating another case. But his words created a firestorm of controversy.
First, that the people in this community realize that anyone who shares such blatant racist views should not be given a badge or a gun or a position of authority in this community.
Memes showing an Elmer Fudd with a gun and a racial slur, and another one showing a boy with a disability wearing a shirt with a racial slur. Jefferson County Attorney Michael Connell uncovered them in private Facebook messages between former Assistant Prospect Police Chief Todd Shaw and an LMPD recruit.
It's probably the most disgusting thing I've seen come out of the mouth of a police officer.
The response to another message from the recruit asking what to do if he caught juveniles smoking marijuana: F the right thing, if they're black, shoot them. Then he suggests having sex with a juvenile's parents unless daddy is black, then shoot him.
Well, I was stunned. I'd never seen such a blatant use of foul language coming from a sworn police officer.
O'Connell found the messages so disturbing he immediately alerted Prospect's mayor.
This guy's gone. I mean, he was suspended the day after the mayor got my letter. They worked out some arrangement to get rid of him. and he's gone.
Shaw resigned late last year. Sources tell WDRB News the messages were uncovered when Shaw was investigated for interfering in the sex abuse probe of the Louisville Metro Police Explorer program. Shaw says he was cleared in that investigation, but because of the messages, 24 cases involving Shaw as an officer are expected to be dismissed.
As far as further actions criminally, I'm not sure that these have crossed that line in terms of criminal behavior, although the effect it has on the criminal justice system, if this goes unnoticed and unchecked, is extraordinarily serious and could affect rights of a lot of people.
Shaw argued that the messages were not politically correct and fought to keep them private, but a judge ruled they should be released under Kentucky's open records law.
I hope he never shows his face in Jefferson County again.
At the time, Shaw was also the acting police chief. O'Connell says Shaw's cases that will likely be dismissed are mostly traffic violations and lower level offenses.
Valerie, have we heard from Shaw or his attorney at this point?
Shaw has declined to comment. His attorneys have not returned our calls yet.
Shaw has resigned from the Prospect Police Department, but do we know if he has a job anywhere else in law enforcement?
There's no word on what he is doing right now. Again, he's declined to comment, so he's not really saying anything about the case.
He did have a 20-year career with LMPD before he joined the Prospect Department. What can you tell us about his alleged involvement with the Explorer sex abuse investigation that led to this explosive development?
Well, one of the officers charged in the Explorer case is accused of asking Shaw to access the NCIC database to run license plates of undercover officers. Improperly accessing the database is a criminal offense.
I'm not asking any exception to any rules. Yeah. But what I will tell you is I don't want to die in your cell.
15 hours later, Relkina Jones would be found dead in her cell.
I don't feel safe with him.
She was arrested on charges of assault from earlier in the night, in which this videotape allegedly shows her hitting her husband.
You got the keys?
She was taken to city jail where she laid out her prescriptions. Then, in great, well-thought-out detail, explained her medical history, all of it captured on police body cam.
I hadn't had my medication then. 1. 2, I have a brain injury. My main concern is my POTS syndrome.
That's a syndrome that triggers lightheadedness and fainting.
With your health issues, it's easier to keep an eye on you here.
Jail personnel gave her options, including a holding area where she could make calls. Little did any of them know her plea earlier in the night would prove tragically valid.
I'm not asking any exception to any rules. But what I will tell you is I don't want to die in your cell.
Always get yourself a gun and stay strapped, my friends. Stay strapped. So I want to tell you a quick story, and I have a reason that I want to tell you a story, okay? And I want you to watch this whole video, okay? Because I'm going to point out specific types of moral and ethical corruption that are going on inside of our government right now, and how government officials are siding with people who support their political ideology and giving them money, okay? So here's the deal. This woman right here, she works for Multnomah County. Now, I'm not exactly sure. I'm pretty positive she is a probation officer. And what she did is she sued Multnomah County. She sued Multnomah County and was awarded $100,000. $100,000 because one of her fellow employees had a Blue Lives Matter flag displayed in the office. Now, here's the thing. There was other types of things in the office. Apparently, this woman, from reports, now I can't verify this, from reports, that she had Black Lives Matter flags and that the Blue Lives Matter flag offended her. But here's what makes this even more interesting, okay? So this woman right here, after this woman or person refused to take down, I believe it's a man, I think it's a man in this office, refused to take down their Blue Lives Matter flag, she posted this giant mural of a lot of black people that have been killed. So she is a Black Lives Matter activist. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. She was awarded $100,000. Her lawsuit started in January. Now, there's links to all of this in the description below, and I'm going to show you what kind of ethical corruption we have going on and how you can actually fight back on this. So the original lawsuit was actually for $420,000. Okay, now this is Karima Guan Plajur versus Multnomah County. And the interesting thing is, she actually cites the Charlottesville, Virginia protests and the fact that some of the people in Charlottesville, Virginia displayed the thin blue line flag during their protest. And apparently that's the reason that she believes that the flag should not be displayed, and it's an attack on her, and that the Blue Lives Matter flag is in support of white supremacy. And one of the interesting things is even her own attorneys claimed that other co-workers who had hung similar Blue Lives Matter flags took down their flags after learning that they were offensive to some co-workers in the office. It just goes to show you how weak and pathetic people are becoming, and I support the person who refused to remove this flag. Now, apparently, this woman is no longer going to be working for Multnomah County, but listen to this. Her attorneys claim that the Black Lives Matter movement was started to call attention to the disproportionate policing and killing of black people by law enforcement. The Blue Lives Matter sign co-ops the racial justice movement slogan, repurposes it to shift focus to law enforcement, a chosen profession, not a racial identity, which doesn't say anything. So it doesn't say anything. So racial identity versus chosen profession. So I don't understand how supporting a chosen profession over or in place of a racial identity even matters. But she says that this denigrates, dilutes, and demeans the purpose of the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, she won. She was given of the $420,000 she filed suit over. And by the way, feel free, the attorneys that gave away, that fought for her to get $100,000 taken away from the taxpayers are called Albee and Stark, and they're at 210 Southwest Morrison Street. Feel free to contact them. They're clearly very good at what they do. I recommend getting a hold of them for, maybe some little racial justice services of your own if you have any. I wonder if they'd represent a white person. I wonder, in a reverse type of scenario, right? I don't understand why the Blue Lives Matter person couldn't have filed a reverse suit in its place. It doesn't make any sense. It will clearly show a bias in favor of, a predisposition in favor of the woman who sued Multnomah County and was given $100,000 because of it. That's the problem that I have. Okay, you can't. That's not right, because being a proponent of Black Lives Matter is not a right. Okay, well, excuse me, it is a right, but these people. What I'm trying to say is these city officials are supposed to avoid bias or favoritism and respect the cultural differences as part of decision making. And they didn't do that. They didn't do that in this case. People who support Blue Lives Matter and people who support Black Lives Matter come from two different cultural backgrounds almost all the time. All the time. That's objectively true. And they ignored their own code of conduct. They should be removed.
Man living in fear of one of his neighbors. He says he's been harassed now for more than a year, and add to that neighbor says he's just simply gone way too far this time. Fox 5's Marina Morocco is here to start us off at 10. Marina.
Yeah, and well, it's gone way beyond a feud between neighbors who say it's completely one-sided. They're fed up and believe their neighbor needs to be held accountable for wrecking their peace of mind.
It's a 14-month-old hate crime.
From the moment Dante and his family moved into their New Market neighborhood, the harassment hasn't stopped.
It's so bad. When I call 911, within 10 seconds, the dispatcher cuts me off. I already know where you're calling about.
Dante's next-door neighbor, Sean Porter, a renter who has taken his First Amendment right to a whole nother level. His front yard becoming a public display of anger and rants, calling out the neighborhood's homeowners association, its board members by name, and even putting up their headshots. His latest antics, sarcastic references directed towards Frederick County Sheriff Jenkins.
His mailbox is no longer there because one of the residents just freaking plowed it over.
Warning, no trespassing. Violators will be shot. Survivors will be shot again. Neighbors allege Porter brandishes assault rifles on his windowsills in plain sight as a form of intimidation.
He pulled a gun on some workers that were remodeling my bathroom because they parked in front of his house mistakenly thinking it was mine.
Dante says the harassment is incessant, with Porter dedicating a day to wave Confederate flags with the help of his middle school son for hours on end.
He told his son, if you go to the playground and that black kid is there, you come home.
Last week, Dante called the cops at 2:30 in the morning after he alleges Porter spent the night blaring music in the front yard.
He's threatening, he's harassing, he's doing absolutely everything. Thursday night, he put my name on his truck. Then it became a direct attack.
For the last couple of weeks, deputies keep a round-the-clock watch, making sure tensions don't escalate. Tonight, Porter stopped by our live truck asking what we were doing.
He allegedly calls me names and he harasses me. He calls the police about the way my car is parked in the middle of the night to wake me up on purpose.
Well, he says that you rev your engine late into the night.
No, I don't rev my engine late into the night. He's talking about kids in the neighborhood. It has nothing to do with me.
Neighbors say it was Porter who recently chased down a school bus in their neighborhood.
Oh God, he's getting off. Just wait.
Terrorizing their children.
It's a state law, you can't follow a bus.
What about that time that you chased that school bus down?
There was no time I chased a school bus down. There's no chasing a school bus down.
You were tailgating that
Have
bus.
a good day. No, I wasn't tailgating any bus. Have a good day. Otherwise, I would have been charged, wouldn't I?
Well,
Have
I'll
a
show
good
the
one.
video tonight.
Take care. Thank you.
My family in 2015 should not be subject to hate crime in 2015. It's absolutely ridiculous. I feel like I'm living in the 50s.
Some want to remove Confederate statues while others want to rename Robert E. Lee Park. But the threat posed by one supporter of the rebel flag is at the heart of a neighborhood turned upside down in Rosedale. ABC 2 News' Jeff Hager joins us right now with more on how this has led to violence, Jeff.
Jamie, the teenager in the middle of this isn't really flying the Confederate flag. He's wrapping himself in it and parading it up and down the street, which has led to a very uncivil war with his neighbors. Violence on the streets of Rosedale ends in an arrest after neighbors say a white man who had recently been toting a Confederate flag through the neighborhood leveled verbal threats at one of the lone black families here.
He was walking down the street, and he stopped in front of T's house and said, "F you, I'm going to kill you all."
Witnesses say when some white neighbors confronted him, a fight ensued, and a good Samaritan paid for it in blood.
I tried to tell everybody to call the police and tell them to stop. Neighbor was already stopping, and then the guy came at me with the knife.
How many stitches?
7 stitches. I was just protecting myself.
Police arrested 18-year-old Brandon Harold on assault and weapons charges and later charged his father, Harry Harold, after he allegedly peeked in the windows of several victims. One of them is Shirlette Jackson, who captured these images of the flag-bearing teenager in front of her house a week earlier.
Actually, when I took the picture, I was standing at my window and he was standing right there. And then he kept doing it. Then he went and got his bike and he was right up and down.
Brandon's stepmother says it's the neighbors who are the real threats on this street.
He's 18 years old, but he's more like a 14-year-old because he's a special needs child. He was minding his business. They jumped him. So I want justice to be done.
As for the rebel flag, which also is featured prominently on his Facebook page, his family is offering up a historical defense.
We're not prejudiced at all. It has something to do with his heritage, his people fighting the war to represent that flag. It has nothing to do with a hate crime.
A judge released Brandon Harold on his own recognizance, which means the threat he poses, real or imagined, is very much on the minds of his neighbors.
Maybe they're not taking it serious enough, and the only time it seems like people start taking things serious is when someone's dead.
Running him over in an SUV in a racist attack learned his fate today. Today, a judge sentenced Russell Courtier to life in prison. He killed 19-year-old Larnell Bruce in Gresham back in 2016.
Our Amy Frazier is live outside the Multnomah County Courthouse with reaction from the victim's family. Amy?
Well, the victim's family says they feel a sense of relief. Their focus now is spreading love. 40-year-old Russell Courtier teared up during today's hearing, but the victim's family believes it was all for show. The judge says he was driven by hate and anger when he ran over and killed Larnell Bruce in August of 2016. It happened after a fight at a Gresham 7-Eleven. During the trial, the state presented evidence showing Courtier is a member member of a white supremacist prison gang. He did not speak during his sentencing today. The victim's family met with us after the hearing, surrounded by green balloons to promote organ donation. They say Bruce's organs helped save 5 people. As for the man now sentenced to life in prison, they say they hope he realizes how much they all have lost.
Through this trial, my emotions were all over the place. It wasn't until I took the time to realize what he lost too, that it made sense to me that it wouldn't do me no good to approach it angrily, because that's what got us here to begin with.
Courtier's girlfriend, Colleen Hunt, was also in the SUV when Bruce was murdered. She pled guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced today to 10 years in prison. Bruce's family tells us they're now starting a nonprofit organization to help other victims of hate crimes.
We spend $1.2 trillion a year. The black community spends $1.2 trillion a year, but only 2% of that spending actually is spent in our community. So I ask people, imagine a country, $1.2 trillion is bigger than some countries in the world. So imagine a country that had a GDP of $1.2 trillion and only spent 2% of it in their country and the other 98% somewhere else. You would know that that is going to be a poor country. The reality is that our community is building wealth in other communities and not amongst ourselves. If that 2% that we spent in our community moved to even 10%, we would create 1 million jobs in the black community. That's something we would do on our own, with our own dollars. So the idea here is not just to bank black, but to buy black, to be black, to support the black community. Black dollars circulate in our community for only 6 hours. Like somebody gets paid, they go get a haircut, and then they go to another community and spend the rest of their money. 6 hours. The Asian American community, their dollars circulate in their community for 28 days. Not 28 hours compared to our 6 hours. 28 days. The Jewish community, 19 days. So we're taking our dollars and not circulating it amongst ourselves. But if we do that, that's how we build wealth. This is really the beginning. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is to increase our awareness, to increase our children's awareness of the power of our dollars. We have to be purposeful in terms of how we spend our money, how we save our money, what we do with our money. And so to say to the community, put $100 in One United Bank, put $100 in the black-owned bank, go to oneunited.com and put $100 in the bank. First of all, it's still your $100. You didn't lose anything. You still have $100 in the bank. In fact, the interest we pay is higher than what you're getting at Bank of America. And you can do online banking and bill pay and all those kinds of things the same as you can do with Bank of America. As Reverend Willis said, our ice is just as cold. But the key is not just the dollars that you put in One United Bank. It's the change of mind. This is a mind share issue. This is increasing our mind, the power of what we think about the power of our dollars.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RP to the brother Danquirs Franklin. Luckily, the sister Stephanie Washington survived, and she's still alive to tell her story. At the end of the day, we don't have any other choice but to build our own institutions to protect ourselves. If we can go fight for everybody else's freedom and uphold everybody else's laws, we can do the same for ourselves. Too often we want to deal with the symptoms of the problem instead of addressing the root of the problem. But if you solve the root of the problem, the symptoms will go away. We have to invest in ourselves. We have to have each other's backs. We have to get over this fear that has been instilled in us. Until people get punished for harming us, they will continue to do what they do. But if they understood it comes with consequences, they would think twice. We as a group have no other choice but to get back on code with each other. Start supporting each other again, because we don't have any other choice. But this time we have to learn how to protect the things that we build, because they will come to try to destroy it. But when we're on code and we love ourselves, love each other, they can't stop it. Now, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.